warm welcome is extended to you to this, the exit or closeout workshop of the second low-income settlement program. It was just a few years ago. In fact, it was right at the same venue that the program was launched, and that was in June of 2009. The government secured funding to the tune of $27.9 million US from the IDB to implement the Low-Income Settlement 2 program. The main purpose of the program was to improve the quality of life of low-income families through better access to housing. The program strategy, what I would consider, it was multi-dimensional and more comprehensive package than the previous program, that's the LIS-1, that program concluded in 2007. The program conceptualized went beyond the basic provision of sites and services, land divestment, and incorporated 4 pilots: home improvement, the core house pilot, the hinterland pilot, and a partnership with professional groups to address issues of affordability. Today is the opportune time to say thank you for your enormous contribution, and at the same time to present to you a synopsis of the program, share with you the achievements, the lessons learned, identify best practices that can be applied in the future. We are expecting that later today we will have meaningful discussions, and we will encourage you to fully participate as we go through the day. CHNPA is under the purview of the Ministry of Communities. It's a new ministry. And I would like to introduce Honorable Minister within the Ministry of Communities, Minister Keith Scott. He is an advocate for establishing, or he has been advocating, the whole aspect of establishing cohesive communities. His emphasis is on the need for us to ensure, as we develop areas, that provision is made for recreational spaces, daycare centers, and also he has been focusing on us preserving communities, preserving the houses that beneficiaries have constructed. And in that area, he has a passion and an interest in us as we develop, as we design areas that hydrants are provided. It is my pleasure at this time to invite to come to speak to us, to give us brief remarks, Minister Keith Scott.
It is my pleasure this morning to deliver the opening remarks for this exit workshop, which signals the wrapping up of the second low-income settlements program, which, as I understand it, was implemented by CHPA over a period of 6 years, and which targeted beneficiaries of houses and house lots in various housing schemes. I am pleased that this program was specific to low-income persons, as this name implies, since these are the usual areas and the usual persons that have the greatest needs. This is also the area which the Ministry of Communities, as well as the government of Guyana, pays serious and careful attention to, because we are the people ourselves. What the people are, therein are our government. A review of the components of the program indicates that it was designed with special needs of this demographic in mind, with a view to improving their lives and granting them the opportunity to access housing as it relates to services at an affordable cost. The affordable cost is where we do have a debt of gratitude to give to the IDB and other agencies, because that is one of the biggest problems that we're still faced with, bringing houses to the level of cost factor that people can afford. We have not yet conquered that, but we are aiming there. Ultimately, we will get there. I note with interest the pilots that were implemented and from which the results indicate that a commendable level of success was achieved. It is my hope that the start which was provided by this program will be the catalyst through which beneficiaries of that program will improve and leave a legacy for others to follow. As we move forward, this administration will be focusing on further consolidating communities and creating new communities that are cohesive and sustainable. Interventions will place emphasis on the provision of jobs, social infrastructure, and other community-based projects that will harness the skills of the individuals of each community. It will also be used as an opportunity to more than just harness, but to teach people to teach others. It is one of the greatest means by which we can sustain the culture of our communities, while at the same time producing patriots for our society as a whole. We'll be creating jobs as well if we do this. This new vision also embraces knowledge sharing for the empowerment of communities. Our planning and our community sections, departments, will continue to work together to reach out to all local democratic organs. And here again, with a new dispensation that will be coming on stream, come March, April next year, we will have the opportunity for the community section of our department to fully be embraced by each of the new communities, village councils that would be in need of our help. We are going to see them as brothers and sisters, and we'll be working together so that at some point they'll not be able to distinguish between tongue from hinterland, because we are going to be producing patriots that see all Guyana as one. This is what we will be calling the participatory approach. I'd like to offer congratulations to the IDB and the CHPA, the teams that are working together on a program that has provided improved quality of life to over 9,000 persons, 9,000 households, rather. 1,200 of these households would have benefited directly from improved housing in the form of either a core house, an improved existing housing scheme or structure that they would have had. They will also have had an idea of having different types of houses that can still be affordable. The type of houses you'll find in the hinterland might not be that as you'd find in town, but exposure will be able to improve on all sides, where we can see that our inputs, together with your input, can make a quality of life that is better than anything before. It is the case with the professional pilots, which have provided service lots that will enable our officers more to help others like teachers, civil servants, police, nurses, an area which is solely our concern. And we intend to specifically address in the early year houses for nurses and teachers particularly, because historically I feel that they have not been fully given the attention and the help in that department that they should get. We are thinking about them, and we shall be doing that in the new year. Nurses and teachers, you're special to us. I want to also congratulate those officers that are involved and will continue to be involved in ensuring that the communities get the attention and the skilled help that they need. I note, however, with pride, the comments in the draft project completion report on CHPA's performance, which was termed, and I quote, organized, efficient, and dedicated, end quote, and was able to meet the implementation targets despite challenges that was placed. This, to my mind, is to be commended. It proves to me that we have staff that's quite competent and dedicated to the task at hand. My future with this organization, my future with my desire to make sure that people of Guyana get the best, can only succeed once I have competent staff, as I do have, and I commend them for that, and I encourage them to stick to it. I look forward to them maintaining the high standards that they have set. It is my hope that the lessons learned from the implementation of this project and this program, and more particularly the pilots, will enable the issues that emerge to be addressed. If the pilots are replicated, my wish to you today is for a successful exit workshop.
There are two things I wanted to share with you that I think made this program quite exemplary. First one is the fact that Ms. Pitt and myself met for the first time in December 2007. And we've maintained our position for the past 8 years almost. Ms. Pitt as CEO and myself as team leader. And I think that this has been quite an asset for the program, because with this continuity came stability, fluidity in communication, and the ability to address issues in a quick manner. And I think I really take this away as something that was very good for the program. The second thing I would like to mention to you is that there are two projects in this program that are very dear to my heart, because I think that they've become examples in the region and definitely in the housing cluster at the IDB. The first one is the core house pilot within the site and services project. As you know, a site and service project is a very long and gradual process where you give the land, then the services, and after the house. And since the 80s, the developing communities hasn't really liked this model because it's slow and it doesn't look nice right away. And the thing we wanted to test with this project is that site with services could work if we kickstart the incremental process and help families to move into a real house, hence the idea of a core house. And this is a project that we document during the implementation phase. And I know as a fact that we mention it as an example during the last World Urban Forum. So it's just to tell you how much we think of that project. The other project I want to mention is the hinterland pilot. It's a pilot that we wanted highly participatory. And the way it's designed, basically the communities do their need assessment, and then they design their house, and then they participate in the building of the house. And it was quite new for all of us, I think. And just to give you an example of how exemplary it is, we brought this model to Suriname, and right now Suriname is implementing an hinterland pilot using the operating regulation we developed here in Guyana. So to conclude, I think this program is an example for the region and definitely for the housing cluster at the IDB. I want to salute Ms. Pitt and her wonderful team at CHNPA. My experience has been that each member of the team has brought her and his best to the design and execution of the program. And today is a great opportunity for us all to review the successes but also the challenges, to make sure that in the future we keep improving our intervention in the housing sector. So I look forward to our discussions.
It's always a pleasure to be able to come at the end of a project. Usually we're very concentrated at the beginning at how to get things moving. We get caught up into execution, the challenges of execution, although I think this program did not have too many of those. Most probably the day-to-day that I don't know about, and that's a good thing. But we forget about the end. And the end is important because it is the evidence that a project cycle, very hard work, has come to a result, and there are results, and there are a number of houses, there are pilot projects. So it's an important phase of a project cycle. It's an important phase, financing that Guyana has brought into its communities, its population. And it's also, so it's a moment to be celebrated. And we also, in the type of society we always concentrate at beginning and programming and how we're going to get this better, but we forget about how to celebrate when something has been well done. So I think this is an opportunity for us to celebrate a very good program. And I have to say very frankly, often programs have issues, and I don't think this is one of them. This is one of them. This is a success story. The success story of results, good project management, facing challenges and finding the solution. So I think there are a lot of examples here to be looked at in terms of the results in terms of the sector itself, but in terms also of the results of how a program can be led. And I need to compliment the CHPA team led by Ms. Pitt on their excellent management of this program. Congratulations. So as my colleague Ophélie Chevalier said, this is an important, so we need to look at the history of the project, what worked and what did not work. But some things did not work, and if we don't do that, this is an important part for the next program. Because as much as we are happy that this is ending with good results, not happy at the end, but happy that there are good results, there's a good story that the pilot projects did lead to another program. So while we are finishing this one, we are preparing another one, which we should be going to the board soon, but a much smaller one. And we were able to do that because of the lessons learned. And it's a approximately $3 million project concentrated only on the hinterland. And that was possible because of the success of the pilot. So that we already have the lessons learned here. We're already implementing it. But I think it's even more important to look at the challenges you had, and there were different models for that program to continue to execute or to have the swift execution it had. Housing is important. It's part of poverty alleviation. It's part of addressing the needs of populations who don't meet their basic needs. And this is not the first program that the bank finances in Guyana. This is one of the most successful sector programs in terms of housing in the region is in Guyana. And shelter is usually one of the big issues for families with modest means and who are poor. And addressing affordable housing, equitable housing is a first step, an important step in the path of a family stopping the cycle of poverty. So I'm very pleased to be here to celebrate with you the end of a very good project, and I hope you have a very fruitful day.
Today we are here to address and assess the second low-income settlement program. We are here to learn from the lessons, as we have heard from Ms. Makonnen, that will undoubtedly guide future interventions in this sector. In this regard, the strategic vision of the administration was articulated by President Granger on June 10th of this year at the opening of the 11th Parliament. The President, in his address, had this to say, and I quote, Your government aims at providing accessible and affordable housing in sanitary and safe communities, with the necessities for wholesome and dignified living for citizens in need. We shall ensure that all state-sponsored housing developments are provided with recreational, educational, and sports facilities in addition to basic infrastructure, and services such as electricity, telephones, roads, solid waste disposal, and pure water supply. End of quote. It is fair to say, therefore, that we do have a bias, and it is in finding and implementing fair housing solutions for the most vulnerable among us, the needy and the poor. To elaborate a little, I would say that the administration is committed to providing affordable, decent, dignified housing to needy Guyanese. We will continue the good programs that we have inherited, and we will seek to jettison the not-so-good ones. Insofar as state-sponsored housing schemes are concerned, the administration's definition of housing extends beyond simply putting a roof over the heads of citizens. Instead, it encompasses realistic access by all, and again in keeping with the President's articulation, to potable water, electricity, roads, schools, healthcare, and recreational facilities, and all other services and facilities which will allow citizens to enjoy a decent standard of living, quality of life, that our chairperson reminded us being one of the aims of this phase 2 of this program. The administration's definition of housing is centered on the principle of community development and enhancement. The administration sees each citizen as important, as an individual, not a statistic. Each Guyanese has unique talents, desires, goals, and needs. The government will treat each person seeking its assistance with the dignity and respect that he or she deserves. Our housing policies and administrative arrangements will be formulated with this in mind. At our ministries, all Guyanese must be treated with respect. Your government will work towards this important goal by continuing and widening training programs and implementing much-needed ones to ensure that public servants live up to their title, namely, that we are all servants of the public. The administration, with these matters in mind, has created the Ministry of Communities, again, as our chairperson has reminded us, which will coordinate development of regions under a single administrative structure, rather than having diverse agencies doing their own things without coordination or access to the big picture. The focus of the ministry, ladies and gentlemen, is on the human condition or on human needs. Again, as we've been reminded by the earlier presenters. The government recognizes that Guyana is a large and diverse landscape with a wide diversity of geographic and cultural features. As such, a one-size-fits-all approach will not work. Each community has its own unique needs, and solutions to problems will necessarily have to be tailored to meet individual needs. In this regard, earlier this morning, before the program officially got underway, I was reminded by my colleague, Vice President Ali Koch, that the designs for houses in the hinterland, by definition, needs to be different from what they are on the coast, and that perhaps the use of metal roofs, zinc roofs, which would require electricity to be able to provide ventilation, which in many cases might not be readily cheaply available in the hinterland, would by definition dictate that the designs for housing in hinterland communities need to take more advantage of natural ventilation, and therefore the particular features should allow for that. Again, in Georgetown, for example, houses are usually less than 20 feet apart. In the hinterland, the average distance between dwellings perhaps is 200 feet or more. Again, it would dictate designs both of individual houses as well as community schemes. Hinterland development, I'd like to assure again members of the hinterland and particularly of the Ministry of Indigenous Peoples Affairs, is a major priority of this government. We recognize that Guyana's First Peoples, our indigenous sisters and brothers, have been neglected for far too long. The administration is committed to improving the standards of living of citizens who live and work in our large and diverse hinterland. The administration is determined to ensuring that the vast wealth of the hinterland is finally used to develop and benefit those who make Guyana's interior their home. The information regarding squatting, which this program provided, will enable the administration to better serve Guyanese by regularizing squatting areas and provide the services required for dignified living. In 2009, it was recognized by the previous administration that there was a deficit of some 19,000 low-income households. This administration is of the view that that number has been underestimated, as currently there is a backlog of some 25,000 house lot applicants, over 6,000 in Region 4 alone. There is as well overwhelming evidence that poorer Guyanese have not been given the level of attention and priority that they are deserving of, in favor of providing house lots to the wealthy and well-connected. Perhaps Praderville too is the prime example of that. This government is therefore engaged in designing and implementing programs that will benefit all Guyanese, not just the well-connected, the rich, and friends and cronies of those. The administration is committed to renewing the dream of all Guyanese and making that dream a reality. We undertake that in the provision of housing solutions, to ensuring that basic infrastructure such as electricity, roads, water, drainage, and other necessary facilities are in place as house lots are issued. In this way, communities will develop in tandem with individual dwellings. And as Madame Chevalier has reminded us, the feature of the core homes, which is, among other things, designed to kickstart the creation of new housing schemes and to accelerate the sense of community and belonging, is an important feature. Working with financial service providers to facilitate affordable loans to home builders, to give in tax incentives to encourage home builders to use locally produced materials. Because at the end of the day, the economic stimulus and component is important in this program. Supporting volunteerism to help those in need of assistance to build homes. In establishing and developing hinterland communities. Building of starter homes across Guyana for those in need of transitioning from rented accommodation to home ownership, to ensuring the beautification of our country through proper planning, including landscaping, standardization of building codes, establishment of zones within communities to allow for comfort and easy access to industries and commercial establishments. And we would have all heard the point made by my colleague, Minister Scott, how important it is that the question of employment and job creation is factored in and becomes a feature of the development of our housing schemes. Ensuring that home builders and house lot applicants get value for their hard-earned money. In this regard, the Cooperative Republic of Guyana and the IDB has executed the second low-income settlement program, as we have heard, from June 2009, to June 2015, a program which has so far benefited some 19,000 Guyanese and provided valuable data which the administration can and will use to formulate and implement housing policy initiatives. The administration, therefore, continues and looks forward to working with external agencies such as the IDB to improve housing conditions for Guyanese in line with our strategic vision and comprehensive housing policy, as articulated both in our manifesto and as expressed in the words of our President, which I repeated a short while ago. In this regard, ladies and gentlemen, allow me to allude briefly to the board of the Central Housing and Planning Authority, which has only recently been reconstituted. Broadly, the mandate of the board will be to support the management by providing direction, guidance, and leadership. The board has been reminded that on May 11th, the people of Guyana voted for change. Our promise was to provide representative, transparent, and accountable government. That is now our responsibility to deliver on those promises. Let me say this: political intervention will be in the form of providing policy framework, not in the form of interference. Execution, therefore, will be the job of professionals. The board is not expected to be acquiescent to political control, nor is it expected to be passive. It will be allowed to function with independence and in pursuit of publicly articulated goals and objectives. Some of the major issues that will be addressed by the board will include, as I've alluded earlier, enforcement of our zoning regulations, building codes, as well as the indiscriminate occupation of state reserves. I am, however, digressing. Because today we are here, as I said, to address and assess the second low-income settlements program. Our program informs us as to the particular presentations that we can expect. And next and firstly, we will have an overview of the program by Ms. Pitt, the CEO as well as project manager. And that will be followed by details on the two major components as well as other aspects of the program. While we await those presentations, let me say that while this program may be coming to an end, but what will not be coming to an end, certainly, is our work. That remains a continuous task. In this regard, our focus is and will be on efficiency and effectiveness. If I'm allowed to say, it will not be business as usual. It gives me pleasure, therefore, to join all of my colleagues, and in particular, as expressed by Minister Scott earlier, in expressing gratitude to the IDB and other agencies for their cooperation and collaboration and support to this program. And finally, I pledge my own support and that of the ministry in our common endeavors. Thank you very much.
I am indeed pleased this morning to present a review of the second low-income settlements program. Planning for it started in the 2007-2008 period, prior to the approval of the $27.9 million US dollar loan in December 2008. The loan agreement was signed in April 2009, and the loan declared eligible in July of the same year. The Inter-American Development Bank, together with the Central Housing and Planning Authority, designed the program against the background of low affordability among low-income households, their sanitation needs, and their lack of access to housing opportunities. In addition, there was the need to further the goals of the poverty reduction strategy to increase coverage of programs for the most vulnerable, including indigenous populations, and realization of the goals of the National Development Strategy, which aimed to rapidly expand the supply of housing, making housing affordable, and improve access to housing for low-income families. Program design, therefore, addressed affordability and accessibility to housing for low-income groups through improving the sites and services, introducing the core house to provide a housing solution to the most vulnerable, and tested 3 pilots for home improvement, housing in the hinterland, and partnership with professional groups. The program was officially launched at this very venue in June of 2009, and CHPA commenced its implementation. A project execution plan was prepared for the life of the program, from which annual operating plans were prepared, implemented, and monitored. The program covered new and existing areas in 6 regions, namely in Region 3, we had Westminster Phase 1, Underneming Phase 1, Rec Dorsey Phases 1 and 2, and Tuition Phase 2. In Region 4, we had Block EE Nonpareil, Area B Lusignan. In Region 5, Block D Bath. In Region 6, Ordnance Fortlands Phase 2, Area R and Block 5 Anchorville, Number 76 Village. In Region 9, we had Tapatinga. In Region 10, Amelia's Ward. And 5 squatter settlements, regularized squatter settlements. In Regions 4, we had Section D Sophia and Binky Alley. Region 6, Eliza and Mary, Area R and Block 5 Anchorville. The hinterland pilot covered 3 areas in Region 1. We had Oranup, Whitewater, and Manawarin, and 5 areas in Region 9, namely Kotoka, Quatamang, Apateri, Anide, and Masaro. From the outset, the project team established its monitoring mechanism, which included weekly meetings for monitoring progress, and when required, 2 meetings, when critical time-bound decisions and actions had to be taken. The project team also established a highly successful working relationship with the bank, and this is the Inter-American Development Bank, both locally and at the headquarters in Washington. A relationship which saw the exchange of hundreds of emails and other documents, many telephone calls when required, several video conferences, and other meetings. There were also exchange visits to Suriname and El Salvador, which provided the opportunity for team members to exchange information and share experiences with their counterparts who were also implementing programs of a similar nature in their countries. The program achieved the following. The target of 400 core homes, that target was achieved. We disbursed 400 housing improvement subsidies in squatter settlements and housing schemes under the program. That was also fully achieved. We disbursed 200, in fact, we ended up exceeding that target the target was 200, and we disbursed 208 subsidies at the 8 areas in regions 1 and 9 for the hinterland pilot. We constructed 122 houses and replaced 86 roofs. We allocated 206 lots at Recdorzy Phase 2 to nurses, police officers, and teachers. And we have over 130 houses currently constructed. We completed the services to over 9,000 lots for the entire program. We also completed the construction of 285 septic tanks. There was also an institutional strengthening component, and staff were trained in engineering, most to the master's level, monitoring and evaluation, management, legal education, accounting, customer relations, and housing and urban development. Our management information system was also upgraded. We also installed a wide area network to connect to our regional offices in regions 3, 6, and 10. 12 community plans were developed and community projects implemented. We continued with the transfer of titles to beneficiaries in the schemes that were in the program. The National Housing Policy Consultancy was also completed, and the policy presented to Cabinet in 2013. At this time, however, we will necessarily have to review and update that policy. Capacity was also built since the program provided for a number of staff to benefit from training in geographic information systems, project management, procurement and supply, and more recently, the Applied Community Change Program, which was just recently completed by our Community Development Officer. We also did training in-house for Clerk of Works. I would like now to touch on some successes and highlights of the program. And here I look at the Hinterland program. Results of the evaluation of this pilot showed that overcrowding was reduced. Access to safe water, sanitation, and the quality of housing units were improved in both regions. Beneficiaries contributed labor as their equity share contribution for the construction of their homes or replacement of their roofs. Other benefits of this pilot include job creation, women's empowerment, and enhanced capacity in the management of projects. Under the training component of the program, the candidate, who is the Senior Development Officer who I alluded to before, she completed her thesis on housing and women's empowerment, and her case study was the Hinterland Housing Pilot Project in Guyana. It examined the pilot to ascertain whether the intervention impacted on gender equality and women's empowerment. This now adds to the body of knowledge on planning for vulnerable groups in our country's context and provides CH&PA with a roadmap for similar future interventions. For the core house, we carried out an evaluation of the beneficiaries to ascertain their level of satisfaction with the house. We thought this was important, and we started this evaluation even before the pilot was completed. Responses varied. There were some who felt the house was too small to accommodate the needs of their family, with some opting to extend even before moving into the house. Some respondents, however, liked the fact that the house was wired for electricity, that sanitary facilities were provided inside of the house, and that the design itself lent to expansion. And I might say here that we in CH&PA, we designed that house in-house. The results of the evaluation would guide any intervention of a similar nature, since it would be evidence-based. The home improvement pilot provided beneficiaries with excuse me, a subsidy of $200,000 in materials to effect improvement works on their houses. Excuse me. They provided the labor, which was a decision which was reached in consultation with them. And this allowed the entire subsidy to be used in purchasing material for the improvement works. Despite challenges with some suppliers, all 400 subsidies were disbursed, thank you, and 400 households, or approximately 1,600 persons, now benefit from improved housing. I also wish to say at this point that all of our interventions with the various groups of beneficiaries was necessarily a participatory process. We always sought to ensure that we met with the target beneficiaries prior to commencing any part of the program. This is evident in all our approaches because we do embrace a system, a participatory methodology. And it's important because people need to understand what they are to be involved in and appreciate what the benefits would be. With the partnership with professional groups, there was some deviation from the original design of this pilot, occasioned by the results of the consultancy, which was commissioned to ascertain whether the credit unions and associations had the financial capacity to construct the houses for their members. This proved not to be so, and CHPA approached two banks, namely Republic Bank and the Guyana Bank for Trade and Industry, to explain the intervention, and they were very receptive and provided mortgages for the teachers, nurses, and police officers. And it is in this way that these groups were able to proceed with the construction of their houses. We allocated a total of 206 lots at Rekdorzi Phase 2 for this pilot. I would not like to give the impression that implementation of the program was without its challenges. The challenges were many, including poor performance of contractors and us having to terminate some of them and having to retender, and all this takes time. We also had encountered problems with some suppliers of materials for the home improvement pilot and even the core house pilot. There was a long and tedious delay in getting the electrical distribution networks installed in the schemes. In fact, we at CH&PA had to undertake the procurement and implementation of this aspect of the infrastructure. We had to deal as well with the remoteness of the hinterland areas and the challenge of getting materials to the various sites, and I could go on. But I would like to tell a little story about the hinterland pilot and the dedication of the officers who had to do the monitoring there. There were 3 ladies from the Community Development Department. And I was told a story. It wasn't a complaint or anything, but it came up informally. And I was sort of shocked at what they had to go through. In trips to Apateri, I think it's the Rupununi River, the level falls in the dry weather. And my staff recounted stories of crossing that river when it was low. And they counted 26 caimans in the water. So could you imagine 3 ladies with the courage? They never complained, never ever. But this is just, I heard about it informally. And really, ladies, I really must congratulate you. Kudos to you. It's real dedication. Suffice it to say about the challenges, that challenges are there to be surmounted. It requires implementers to assess the risks inherent in project management and implementation, plan to mitigate those risks, and think outside of the box to find solutions to the problems as they arise. To borrow a quote from Thomas S. Monson, and I quote, Our significant opportunities will be found in times of greatest challenges, end of quote. And indeed, the challenges presented opportunities for the team to continue to see the big picture, stick to the tasks at hand, and overcome the challenges. Today, 6 years after commencement of the program, we can look back and say it was well worth it, since the program targets were achieved and in some instances exceeded. And most importantly, we were able to deliver to those persons who have the greatest need. There were many times when we went to commission, for instance, the houses in Whitewater. And I remember at Bath when we handed over the courthouses. The emotional reaction of those homeowners. It makes you feel at the end of the day that all the hard work, sometimes the challenges, it's worth it at the end when that is satisfied. I wish to recognize the key stakeholders who worked well with CHNPA, including the Amerindian Village Councils, the community development officers and other officials of the Ministry of Indigenous Peoples Affairs, the beneficiaries themselves of the program, the local democratic organs, the interagency coordinating committee, the contractors who managed to perform in accordance with the terms and conditions of their contracts and deliver in a timely manner, the Guyana Bank for Trade and Industry and Republic Bank for being receptive and responsive to the idea of providing financing for the nurses, teachers, and police officers who are part of the program, and for working with us to make that pilot a reality. I hope I have not forgotten to mention anyone here, but if I have, I'm sure you would forgive me. The project completion report for the program is now in draft, to be completed after the conclusion of this workshop. It is my hope that the feedback that we get today will add in a significant way to the observations and recommendations so that the report can be completed. I wish to thank each and every one of you here today for your presence and to thank you in advance for your participation in the discussion session. I wish to once again thank the Inter-American Development Bank for its support during implementation of the program. The ministers, all the ministers that took time off this morning to be here with us. And last but not least, a huge thank you to Team CHNPA for the hard work and dedication that led to the successful completion of this program.